Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the I Am Passionate podcast. I hope you all are doing well. I'm sorry it's been a few weeks since I've last made an episode. The month of May has been very, very busy for me. And the last 2 days, they've been very, very long days. So I don't really fully have my voice at the moment, but I'm going to do my best to, kind of keep the energy as high as I can, throughout this episode. But before we kind of dive into, I guess the main topic of this episode, I wanted to talk about, the Bruno Mars concert, The Romantic, because I was able to go the day of this recording. It is Wednesday, May 20th. I was able to go, last Saturday, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I know I haven't been to very many. I've been to two concerts and I've been to one festival, which is not very many. But out of the 30 things I've been to, it's easily the best experience I've had. Like experiencing Lollapalooza, experiencing Summerfest, like Bruno Mars, that show was amazing. It was amazing. I sang my heart out. I was so filled with love. It was amazing. Like there's I needed that. I really did. I really did. But to kind of talk about, the main topic for this episode, I'm going to be talking about Regular Show and the Lost Tapes, which if you've been living under a rock, like I do sometimes, essentially, Regular Show and the Lost Tapes is a continuation of the original series of Regular Show. It was a show on Cartoon Network from 2010 to 2017. One of my bold takes is that I think when you think of cartoons, let's just say from at least my generation, so we'll basically say from the year 2000 to today, I think Regular Show is one of the best cartoons ever made. Yes, you heard me. You heard me. Because when I think of some of the best cartoons ever made, I'm gonna think of Nickelodeon shows first. I'm gonna think of SpongeBob. I'm gonna think of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm gonna think of The Fairly Odd Parents. I'm gonna think of Danny Phantom. Cartoon Network wise, the first thing that comes to mind is Regular Show. So at the very least, I'll kind of change my take to I think Regular Show is the best Cartoon Network cartoon ever, and I'm sure that's probably a very hot take. So if you want to, I guess debate me on what you think the best Cartoon Network cartoon is, hey, I'm all ears. I'm all ears. But, the show has been coming out with episodes pretty much every day for I think about the last week, maybe 2 weeks. And, with today, which I watch, the episodes through Hulu. So Hulu is kind of releasing it kind of weirdly because there was an episode that came out today that I don't quite have access to. So I will be talking a little bit about, all the episodes so far. And so I'm going to warn you now, there are going to be some spoilers as I'll be talking about each episode a little bit and the original series a little bit. You have been warned. Well, before fully diving into, kind of my reactions to the Lost Tapes, I'm going to talk about the original series, Regular Show, and kind of explain why I love the show so much. But first, I also do want to say that Regular Show is definitely one of my comfort shows. I've been watching it a lot. Sometimes I'll have it just on as background noise because it's the perfect thing for me to have on as background noise. I'll be honest, I was watching a little bit of, the original series earlier today. After I had watched, some of the episodes that I needed to catch up on. My favorite Regular Show character. I feel like it constantly changes. At one point, I would have said my favorite character would have been Mordecai. But I think right now, at least as of lately, it's been Eileen. Only because I feel like Eileen always has some funny stuff to say. Whether it's in the original or even, in the episode she's been in the Lost Tapes. But I feel like she's always been the underrated kind of funny, if that makes sense. My favorite episode, season 2, episode 8, Rage Against the TV. I'm sure most of you who know me and have watched Regular Show with me, you're not surprised by that. That's the episode with the hammer, which here's going to be your about 3-second spoiler warning if you've never seen a Regular Show, even though that you don't have to watch a Regular Show in order to understand the show. Essentially, Mordecai and Rigby are playing this game, and it's apparently a very difficult video game. And let's just say this game had 10 levels. At the start of the episode, they were on level 9, which was a very difficult boss, but they ended up beating it. And so then they got to the final level, which is the hammer, in which nobody beats the hammer. That's quite literally the slogan of the game. And so, when they start fighting the hammer starts beating the crap out of Mordecai and Rigby in the video game. And Rigby finds the weakness of the hammer and like, kind of as finding the weakness, their TV gives out. And so like they can't really play video games anymore. It was kind of like if you were to be playing, let's just say Madden, and then like I was to unplug your HDMI cord, or like the HDMI cord in your TV just like fried. Like that's pretty much what happened to their TV. And so like, they go on a journey to, get a new TV. And I just think everything in that episode was funny. Like all Muscle Man's interaction in the episode, where Muscle Man had a TV. He was going to give it to him, but his idiot self forgot to unplug it, and he ended up breaking his own TV. They tried to go to Benson. That didn't quite work out. That all was funny. Then they go to like TV warehouse or whatever. And like Muscle Man always knows the guy that just like owes him. And so like, that just was funny. And then kind of fast forward, they basically get their crappy little TV. They get the help of Skips, Pops, Muscle Man, High Five Ghost, and Mordecai Rigby. And then they're able to play the game. And then, in a regular show fashion, something else crazy happens. And then the hammer manifests in real life. And easily, my favorite scene in all of regular show is Muscle Man's basically like being, shocked that the hammer is real and asked for a picture. And the hammer literally punched Muscle Man like in like the gut chest area, and Muscle Man's own like man boobs like hit him in the face, and he like fell over. That is just so funny. And like when I think of also like why I love that episode so much, half of the scenes Muscle Man has is him making his like crazy like laugh or like shrieking sounds, and it's just so funny. Like honestly, I would say season 2 might be like the best season, because that episode had so many bangers. Like, oh my god, that season was just amazing. So I'll give one more kind of hot take before kind of, diving into, the lost tapes. And that is because like my brother, when I talked to him about what he thought, he was wondering if CJ was going to, appear in, these episodes. CJ was Mordecai's. I mean, I feel like his whole relationship situation was kind of awkward. I'm just going to say, for lack of better terms, he was his girlfriend throughout the show for like a period of time. And throughout regular show, Mordecai had a huge crush on Margaret. My hot take is, I think for Mordecai, CJ was better for him than Margaret was. And I don't think I have much room to kind of say who I think was like better for him. I think the reason why, I think CJ was better is because I think they had, more in common with each other. And I think their personalities, kind of meshed better together. Like, even though that, yes, Mordecai and Margaret, they're friends, they're good friends. But I think that like Mordecai was more himself with CJ than he was with Margaret. And like, the thing that surprises me is Mordecai had a horrible first impression on CJ, like horrible. And I'm still surprised to this day that they were able to have a relationship in that show. And yeah, I think, the whole Mordecai with Margaret situation is Mordecai had chased Margaret for a lot of the show, a lot. And he was successful for a period of time where he was actually able to get out of the friend zone for what would have been, let's just say a few months. I have no idea how much time would have passed, but yeah, he was able to get out of the friend zone, which is crazy. But yeah, I just don't think the relationship was all that long, but I don't know if there's like some sort of canon aspect to who had the long relationship. But, I think, between both CJ and, Margaret, Mordecai had a lot of great times with both. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that from like an episode to episode perspective, yeah, they just did not really have as many moments, in my opinion, like the way CJ and Mordecai did. Like, I think CJ and Mordecai had more like intimate moments. Like, for example, Mordecai literally brought CJ to meet his parents. Like, yes, Margaret took Mordecai to meet her family, but the opposite didn't happen. So, that was, very interesting to me. But ultimately, I understand, like with the whole, you can be amazing for each other, but as a relationship goes on, you can eventually become the wrong person for someone. I understand that fully. But enough, kind of bummy relationship talk. We're going to move forward to regular show on the lost tapes. And I'm just going to warn you again. Here are your spoiler warnings. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I love how they brought the show back. I love it. I did not really expect them to bring the show back the way that they did, kind of seeing Pops in the afterlife, which I'll be honest, I was a little sad at first. But then, like, he was like truly happy until like his like tape that showed like, like some original scenes from the original series. It came on. He was just super happy. And then, like essentially the plot of that part of the episode was that, he had to go get back, those like memory tapes. Cause he had like, apparently everyone who goes to the afterlife in the regular show, you get a tape with their memories on it, or at least some of your memories. I think it's kind of different from person to person, but I'm very curious to how many episodes they will truly release, because at kind of the end of the first half of the first episode, basically when you get to see all of the tapes that Pops has, he has there was a lot. Like there's probably enough to make several seasons of it, but which I understand that it's going to be entirely dependent on revenue. Like I imagine if, a lot of people tune in, I imagine they're going to, keep, making the show. But if, maybe if viewership, takes a significant dip, then maybe not. So then moving on to the second half of the first episode, Skips' Luau, which also, this like episode, basically kind of had like the teasers where like Mordecai and Rigby were like in the golf cart talking about Skips' Luau and like, kind of making like rhymes, freestyling to about, like the luau and everything. And like, I think this episode was perfect to like bring the show back to like its original vibe, if that makes sense. Like Mordecai and Rigby are like still themselves, they're still rapping, freestyling, they're still slackers. And, basically when they get called out by Benson, but pretty much throughout almost the entire show, they put in more work to try to make their lives easier instead of just like doing what's asked of them. Like literally in this episode, they built, with Musselman's help, they built a freaking hovercraft instead of just, like transporting the trash, which like, I get it. Like if you like by like I get it. I more so mean that like, you don't want to, have your job, like you want your job to, you don't want your job to be insanely difficult all the time. If there was things that you can do to make your job easier, of course you're gonna do them. But man, kind of doing what they did to get that hovercraft was so funny. And like I was not expecting, like the FBI to basically be in this episode of regular show and basically a whole like alien conspiracy thing, which they thought was real until realizing it was just Mordecai Rigby in costumes. Which, yeah, no, I think that first episode was really, really funny. And also I just kind of think that it just crazy to like at the end of that episode, the date that Benson was on, the woman who I basically left him for someone, I think his name was Doghouse. It was something dog related, but I thought that was really funny. If I had to give it a rating, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. The next episode, Blade Games. My brother had a really good point about something in this episode that I was telling him about. Mostly, I thought some of the animation in this episode looked a little weird. Like, basically there was a scene where like the people who came, to participate, in the competition with like their blades, and like one of them was like destroying Benson's car. And when Muscle Man kind of popped up to speak in that scene, I thought it looked a little weird. But my brother had brought up a good point that these reminding me that these episodes are essentially Pops' memories, which I'm going to expand upon this a little bit more in a bit. This episode kind of reminded me of the episode where, like in the original series, where Mordecai and Rigby were watching a Japanese game show, which I think it was called Fool Me Once. Which every time I like think of that episode, like the title of that show, which I can't remember off the top of my head, I always think of J. Cole's like lyrics. But anyways, yeah, like the game show host in the original series of that Japanese game show, literally, if they could not complete the obstacle course, this dude had like a fist the size of like 10 footballs. And like would literally punch people in the face, and like only like one person had survived from that. Like that was the theme of that episode. But if I had to rate the episode, I would say 7 out of 10. This is still a good episode. I just like the other episodes more. Moving on to the next episode, Nap Spot. It was funny seeing Muscle Man pulling pranks again, and like Mordecai and Rigby falling for him are just stupid. Like they know that man pulls pranks all the time. Like it's different. Like on the regular series, like they had like the prank wars. Like that's different. But like somebody that you see on like pretty much a day-to-day basis and pulls pranks, I just think that's funny. But like that's what made it funny, like how stupid it was. And like this was definitely like the most chaotic episode so far. Like basically they were falling into such a deep sleep that like they quite literally had an out-of-body experience, for lack of better words. And like they quite literally could have died if they were not well prepared, like to get out of that deep sleep. And like, I didn't really laugh as much during this episode. Not that it wasn't funny, it's just because I feel like regular show often kind of has those episodes where like, something kind of crazy happens, and like the comedy of a certain episode might not be as high as others, but like it's just doing its job at telling a story. But kind of expanding upon the idea from the previous episode, basically during the episode, Muscle Man says to Mordecai Rigby that like this is a dream. It doesn't make sense when kind of talking about like basically in that episode, Muscle Man had told Mordecai Rigby like you got to listen to me, and like he had said like a silly like saying to kind of help them escape the out of body experience that they were in. But it makes total sense because like when you think about it, like well, these are Pops' memories. How does Pops know the parts like he wasn't there for? You know what I mean? So like his memories are probably filling in gaps the only way that he could. So like it makes sense. And which also I get. The budget of this show is probably not the same as it was, when the show was first on. But still, I think this was a great episode. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. The next episode was Coffee Shop Wars. This is my favorite episode so far. I think this episode was so funny. And like the fact that the focus was on Margaret and Eileen for like 95% of the episode, I think was an amazing choice. Because like regular show, like you might have one episode where like Mordecai's the main character. You might have another episode where Skips is the main character. It might be Muslim. It switches. But of course, most of the time it's going to be Mordecai and Rigby. Mordecai and Rigby, outside of like the beginning and ending of the episode, they really only have like two scenes where they were trying the like free samples from like the coffee shop girl that was basically trying to come take Margaret and Eileen's business. I want to say her name was like Valencia. I'll have to kind of fact check that like himself, but like they tried like the donuts and then they were seen like in line at the new like coffee shop, which the new coffee shop is called Hot Brown. And like earlier, how I mentioned that like Eileen was like so underrated, kind of funny. In the episode when like Mordecai and Rigby went to go try the free samples, Eileen already was getting red flags, basically saying she doesn't like the cut of her jib, which I thought was so funny. I thought that was so funny. But like the way because the coffee shop again is called Hot Brown, the way that it kind of just came, appeared out of nowhere, became super popular, and then like fell off in the span of an hour. It was also just like really funny to think about. And like the solution in the episode for like Margaret and Eileen to get customers back, they had like a big like log of like fried foods where like I feel like if anybody ate that, they'd basically like die on a toilet. Like, oh my god, like they put like freaking like a chicken leg in there, they put a slice of pizza in there, they put some eggs in there, they put pretty much any kind of like crazy fat foods that you would not think go together, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm gonna give this episode a 10 out of 10. And then, moving on to the episodes I watched today, Corpse Flower. Well, Margaret at the very beginning of the episode trying to like rap with Mordecai Rigby, which she wasn't really trying to rap. She just kind of like Rigby kind of like pointed to her like make a verse, and it just was really funny. And like Rigby and Eileen being a huge focus episode was like a great idea because like in the original series they had a relationship. Rigby trying to like bribe the nature lady because Rigby and Eileen were going to see this like corpse flower. It was just really funny. Like this man put out like $1, a chewed up piece of gum and some pocket lint, and Margaret was like going like insane, just trying to keep her composure because she just was like super nervous. And then like essentially this flower that Rigby and Eileen went to go see. Yeah, apparently it basically just smelled really, really, really bad. And so like there was I don't want to say a plot twist in the episode, but like I feel like a regular show throughout the entire thing, whether you're talking about the original or even this, there's so many misunderstandings that like the misunderstandings are like super funny. And like I'll be honest, I didn't see the misunderstanding in this episode come. Like it was just like really, really freaking funny. But yeah, I'm not gonna. I guess that'll be the episode I spoil the least. And even so, I don't think I'm talking about each episode in a crazy amount of detail. But yeah, I give that one another 10 out of 10. And then the last episode I was able to watch, it was called Beginning Sun, which basically it was a Benson origin story when he was in that band where he was the drummer, and how basically he ended up like losing his job as the drummer and working at the park. which like I definitely think that was a good episode because like I was curious as to like how he was like like replaced as the drummer. Like in the original series, they just like they talked about it, but they never really like gave it a backstory. So like I thought that was a cool episode. I thought that was really happy to see. Oh, there was an episode I just realized I forgot to talk about. It was the Boba episode. Yeah, it just came to mind. And like I don't know if that makes it seem like dang, Jaren, that's truly your least favorite episode. Um Honestly, the reason I think I just don't remember that one as much. Like I remember it now that I'm thinking about it, but the reason why it did not come to mind is because like I think these were the episodes because like I'll be honest, I've been like avoiding TikTok at certain times of day because I've been seeing clips of the lost tapes on TikTok, and so I remember seeing a lot of clips of that episode specifically, and like basically they bought a bunch of boba. One of her pops drank it. He transformed into this like crazy boba mascot. And like at the beginning, a lot of people didn't like the boba because the drink has air quotes balls in it, which I know what boba is. I just think that was funny. That episode was a good episode, by the way. It was. If I had to give it a rating, maybe 8 out of 10. I'm not sure. But back to the beginning Sun episode, it was nice to kind of get that backstory because like I also wonder like how they're gonna fill in more gaps. And like to me now thinking about it, it's funny how actually no Pops was there as Benson explained the story. So like of course he would remember this. But I was about to say Pops wasn't there when Benson explained, but no, he was. But yeah, nah, I think it was a good episode. It was kind of like a good heartfelt sort of episode. And also it was definitely weird seeing a whole episode of Benson with hair. That's just me, not like that. That's a bad thing. It just was funny. But overall, I'm really enjoying regular show on the lost tapes. I think it's, been, worth the wait because I know that like I feel like they talked about it for like a year or two before like being able to actually make episodes. And so since I can kind of feel my voice giving out even more, I just want to thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of the I Am Passionate podcast, and I'll catch you all on the next episode.